Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of No Questions Left Behind. I'm Nick.
I'm Stevie.
And if this is your first time watching one of these, this is where we respond to all the questions that we were unable to get to in our most recent live, which was about basic car washing. So we covered quite a bit there, and ultimately if you're finding this video and you're wanting to learn a little bit more about car washing, you can go back and check that video out or listen to some of the questions that were asked by the participants there. We will be giving away some free packs of our car wash pods, which we did talk about on that live. And then if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel so you can learn more from us as we commit to doing these YouTube lives on different topics once a month.
Yeah, and we have one coming up May 15th, which is going to be an Ask Me Anything, all questions live, and we're going to be doing a tour of some of the cars back here, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so it's definitely fun, and because we generally get so many questions, and we have a topic and we have demos, like we almost always have to do a follow-up. So we're just going to take the flood of questions as they come, and yeah, show off some hardware in the back as well.
Yeah, and you also have the opportunity to pre-submit questions. So if you want to email social@griotsgarage.com, you have the opportunity to submit photos as well if you have a very specific question or a question that requires context. So definitely send us your questions ahead of time. We'll have those preloaded and ready to go for the live.
Yeah, and that's a month away. So the best way to remember to do that is to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. You can sign up for our promotional emails. That's the first chance you'll have to learn about any ongoing sales, which we just had one end, but it is car washing season and we are going to definitely be doing some promotions. So give us a follow and let's get started.
Yep. All right, so first, 18-month plan asked, crinkle glass towels are the best. In my window kit, do I use the clear glass cleaner first, then ceramic glass cleaner last? And do I need ceramic glass on the inside of my glass too? Glad you're happy with the PFM crinkle weave towels. But in reference to using window cleaner first, I would say yes, because typically you'd want to start with a thoroughly clean glass, and then once it's clean, potentially decontaminated, which is always a good step to do, then you can apply a protectant such as ceramic glass cleaner. However, if your glass is already pretty clean, you could definitely use ceramic glass cleaner to remove that filth as well while adding that protection. You don't necessarily need ceramic glass cleaner on the inside, just because typically those areas aren't exposed to moisture. So unless you're projectile sneezing on your windows, or maybe you have kids doing some weird stuff in the back seat, then you don't need that protection on the inside of your glass.
Yeah, again, there's a price difference between ceramic glass cleaner and standard glass cleaner, so that's a lot of what we have said. You know, you don't need to use a more expensive glass cleaner on the inside because of exactly what you described. And there's no like anti-fogging benefits to ceramic glass cleaner. So not necessary, but of course you can use it. We've definitely tested it, so it's safe, but you don't need it. All right, so this is a question that came up and I felt like it was worth answering again. AR and SoCal asked, do you recommend wearing gloves when using your wheel cleaners? And my answer during the live, and again, just to repeat, I don't use gloves because of the chemicals that we sell. We do have an alkaline formula in our wheel, tire, and mat cleaner, but our other two chemicals are pH neutral. It's mostly, I wear gloves in particular because when I'm cleaning wheels, I'm removing brake dust and some heavy metals that come out of a brake pad and get embedded in your wheel. And I have found that when I was doing multiple cars, if I wasn't wearing gloves, I would get brake dust that actually kind of sank into my hands, and that probably wasn't healthy. So it's more of a protection step for what I'm actually cleaning versus the chemicals themselves.
Then the question from Arthur Martinez, how can I remove swirl marks 100% without color sanding panels with the products you offer? So typically swirl marks wouldn't necessarily need to be color sanded. So what I would recommend is using a compound or polish depending on the severity of these swirl marks. We always recommend doing a test section first, ensure that that's removing the defects to your liking, and then if you need to get more aggressive, you definitely can with a more aggressive compound or pad setup or even orbital. But I also kind of want to touch on, I'm going to make this question way deeper than it needs to be. but you may not always want to 100% remove swirl marks depending on what the vehicle's purpose and use is and how you're maintaining it. If it's a daily driver that's going to pick those swirl marks back up, it might not be worth removing the clear coat, not too extensive amounts obviously, but getting all of those defects out because it's going to pick them up again pretty soon, likely. So if you want to remove swirl marks, you can polish those with our compound, and you can definitely reach out to us if you want a specific recommendation on your vehicle, or email us at social@griotsgarage.com for our next live. But you definitely shouldn't need to color sand to get swirls out.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to the concept that paint is a finite system, right? You only have so much from the factory, and unless you really want to pay to repaint a car, I've done it. It's not a good bill to get. But that was part of restoration processes. But yeah, I mean, we have beautiful black paint jobs on show cars that have gone to SEMA, my Lincoln included. There are swirl marks on them. They are so few of them that most people would not be able to see them, but under harsh light or intense light, you could find a couple. But to your point, do you really want a car that's free of swirl marks that you literally can't move or wipe down again so as to introduce more? I'd say you make that judgment call yourself, but a car that is free of swirls will most likely go in a bubble and not be used. So, prepping for a sale, sure, make it look as good as possible. I think most people get offended when we call swirl marks scratches or don't see swirl marks because they associate a scratch with an angry ex-girlfriend and a set of keys. So it's all relative to what you're seeing, the color of your car, how you're going to use the car, and how much time you have. So it is a little bit more in depth, but it requires a little bit broader explanation because people interpret scratches and perfect paint differently. So that was a mouthful for both of us. Okay, so car wash channel. This was one that it was clear to me that this person hadn't ever been here before, so that was great. He wanted to ask, who founded Griot's Garage and who started it? Well, my dad, Richard Griot, is the chairman of the board. He's the primary owner. We have employees that own parts of the business as well. He started it in 1990. He recently retired about a year and a half ago, but he literally just wandered in here while we were recording this and made some noise for us. And we don't know where we'll find him wandering in the building later today, but we'll tap him on the shoulder and direct him the right way. But he still loves this business, and we've got a great team of employees amongst many states and multiple facilities now. And we're still proudly a family-owned business in a competitive set that is increasingly becoming more and more absorbed by big private equity firms or conglomerates of tire fixing solutions and fuel additives. So it's getting lonelier, but we're still having fun.
Car Wash Channel actually had quite a few great questions, so I'll just hit on another one here. I have a question: do you wash with the mitt on the car side to side or up and down or in circles? Our general recommendation is that you start on the higher portions of the vehicle and work your way down. So say that you're working on the door, you would work in horizontal passes from the top, working your way down. Definitely keep an eye on the pad or the mitt that you're using. We recommend having two different ones, one for above the belt line and one for below, but if you are just using one, just keep an eye on the soiling that you're building up and rinse in the bucket pretty frequently to remove that. And then of course rinse before you move back to the top of the next section. But we typically recommend straight line passes because if you were to pick up any grit or debris in that pad that's going to potentially cause a swirl mark or scratch, if you're adding circular scratches, they're going to be a lot more visible and typically a little more complicated to remove, whereas straight line are going to be a little less visible and typically easier to remove.
Yeah, and we did have somebody ask if you go up and down, right? So if I'm doing straight line passes, can I go up and down? Well, that really defeats the discipline that we spoke of, where you can assume the lower part of the car is dirtier than the upper part of the car, and that is, I don't think I've ever seen it the other way, right? Unless a car rolls over, and then you got bigger problems. But if you were going up and down, you would literally be picking up material from the dirtiest part of the car and bringing it back up to a cleaner part of the car, risking imparting some damage. So top to bottom in terms of how you approach the vertical axis, but with lateral passes. We had a couple people too that are in here that, we were talking about, rinsing your mitt and, how often you would do that. It is a visual inspection for sure, and very clean cars that are getting routine washes. You might be able to extend that, your washing area a little bit more, but we do, have a grit guard in our bucket that you can, agitate your washing tool on that to release dirt, or a secondary bucket with clean water, which is the 2-bucket method. Or we had 2 guys weigh in that they just take their hose and rinse their wash tool off, which is what I did for, the longest time growing up. And as I shared, I was mocked for that process because I would do it, every panel. So I'd do a door, rinse the tool off with the hose, do another door, rinse the tool off with a hose. It's a great way to blow anything that's heavy out of your mitt, or again, either of those other processes described. So I took out a couple other questions. Num, AZ, and Mike Sear both suggested that, and I definitely endorse that as part of cleaning your washing tool up. Car Wash also asked, we had a couple product questions come in, so we'll definitely address those. Are we ever going to restock foam on wax? No, we have discontinued that product. That was, sales related, and quite frankly, a little bit of overlap with ceramic wash and coat and foaming polygloss being utilized for foam on protection as part of a foaming process. So we had a couple other products with that utility that quite frankly are more concentrated and or offer better protection than foam on wax, and that product, has gone away.
Yeah. We had a few questions about caring for pads or towels after using ceramic products in it. This one is from Chivalry. Should microfiber towels used with the ceramic rinseless wash be cared for the same way as if they were used with 3-in-1 or liquid wax, i.e. wash right away? And that would always be the recommendation with ceramic products, just because if you allow that product to dry in the pad or towel, it's going to essentially cure into that, and then it's going to require more effort in cleaning in order to remove that. So best case scenario would be to wash it right away or as soon as possible after the job that you've done.
Yeah, Chris McD asks, tips for quickly washing 4 cars in one go. Do them sequentially or in parallel? My best suggestion is get a buddy. Do it with multiple people. But secondarily, if you're doing all 4 cars alone, I think my process when I was detailing multiple cars or had at somebody's house and doing all of their cars in a single morning, I would do a singular process on all of the cars and then shift to the next process and still do them in sequence. I think in parallel presents too many risks for creating net new water spots, in particular if you're using a hose and your water is hard and you rinse 4 vehicles at once. By the time you get to the 4th vehicle, that water very well could have dried, creating water spots. Or if you're applying an alkaline wheel cleaner to 16 wheels and tires at the same time, and then thinking that you're gonna move around there as extremely fast before some of that dries up, potentially creating marks. I would think you've got to have some discipline there, but I think ultimately get a buddy. Secondarily, do all the wheels and tires first on all 4 cars, and then wash at the same time. That's also gonna kind of keep your equipment flow a little better, right? So you aren't dunking your wash mitt into your wheel bucket and getting confused as, that's a lot of cars to wash. So you'll probably be pretty tired.
I think as much time as you think you would save by doing them in parallel, you're going to be creating much more headache for yourself and potentially further issues.
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing it here in this controlled environment, I still think that is a potential. But if you're doing it like outside in your driveway, almost certainly something's going to dry up that could create water spots or a chemical being allowed to dwell so long or too long. There's just too much risk doing them in parallel without a buddy.
Yeah. Cindy Nero asked, do the pod suds up for a long time or do you need to reactivate them? Once that pod bursts, you've agitated it and it suds, those, I can't talk today, sorry.
It's all good.
Those suds are gonna retain very well, so you won't need to reactivate or re-agitate the water.
Yeah, I mean, if I think we do testing in terms of the efficacy of the foam, because people like foam as a visual cue in a wash bucket. Hours, that's an unreasonable expectation for any car wash soap on planet Earth, which you could re-agitate with a fine stream of water, but I'm pretty proud of what the pods, the suds they create, so I wouldn't think they require consistent re-agitation.
Real quick, Dan Spielman asked, can ceramic washing coat or polygloss be used during a wheels off detail to add protection to suspension and undercarriage components? If so, which one is better than the other in this application? I would say yes, they can be used, but you might be happier with undercarriage spray.
Yeah, well, I will advocate for ceramic washing coat, with the choice between the two. I know that when I was selling the Grand Wagoneer, how part of the big build was this beautiful frame, and it was all powder coated and had kind of a satin finish. And so I wanted it to look as good as possible as I kind of put a few more miles on it before the sale. And we just foamed ceramic washing coat over the entirety of the undercarriage. Is that gonna be extremely durable? No, but it was pretty sweet to drive it on a rainy day and then look under the undercarriage and have stuff just slipping off really quickly. So I think it's overkill, but you might see that benefit of polygloss or ceramic washing coat most on plastic wheel well liners. But once it's under the car, there's not a lot that'll stick around. Even a high solid ceramic coating, I would think would just get the crap kicked out of it under there, and it'd probably be a waste of time. And chemicals. But hey, pre-sale, do everything you can to maximize your value. I will say a used car dealer or a standard dealership, they're not giving you more money for that kind of work. All right, Dean Putzback asks, he has a different foam cannon, not a Griot's Garage one, which does not have a metering tip system, much like our Boss foam cannon does, that can be paired with our Boss foam system concentrates. How much product do I add to my foam cannon reservoir? Well, dilution ratios are a thing, and different foam cannons have different reservoir sizes, so a dilution ratio can guide you on that. And we do have instructions on the back of all of our foaming products for the correct dilution ratio. So some of our products are 4-to-1. In a 32 ounce reservoir, that means you're putting about you're putting about 8 ounces in that. That's not a very efficient foam, or that's a terrible dilution ratio to cite for an efficient foam. But I would think that I know our Boss foams, if you poured them into a reservoir that's about 32 ounces, we recommend between 1.5 to 2 ounces if you don't have our metering system. So it'll vary by the chemical and manufacturer, and most manufacturers should include a dilution ratio. I know we do, it's very important to us. So you gotta do a little math, but it's not that complicated, and some foams are very efficient, some products are less so.
I might recommend that you consider getting one of our foam cannons as well, because the cannon could also impact the performance of the soap you're getting. Some cannons just don't agitate the way that they need to provide that really thick, nice foam. So depending on what cannon you have, we might have a better option. I mean, we do have a better option, but.
The Boss foaming system with metering tips is pretty sweet. I mean, to just screw a bottle onto your foam cannon and not have to do any mixing, that takes a lot of guesswork out, gets you a great result every time. So.
And you don't have to worry about storing your pre-diluted solution then. If you don't use it all, you either have to dump it or store it, and that eliminates that.
Yeah, so you should once that foam cannon poops out on you, come buy one of ours.
Dean also asked, off subject, but damp cloth for removing ceramic liquid wax, does hot or cold water make a difference in the end result, or easier with either? We've thoroughly tested this with both, and there is no difference. Hot or cold water, either way, just make sure you have a damp towel to start with.
Yeah. Dennis C. asks, is it best to rinse the soap off with a spray nozzle or open hose? I find open hose enables the water to run off in sheets rather than leaving dots of droplets from a spray. Drying is easier also. So you've seen this on Instagram, the concept of water drying, which I don't buy that, but ultimately, leaving less water on the surface will speak to the protection that is on the vehicle. So whether it be a pressure washer that has a high water output, a high GPM rate, or just a garden hose or standard hose that's like an 8 to 14 gallon per minute rate, you're gonna put a lot more water on with that garden hose. You're gonna get the soap off a lot faster, for sure. So there's some efficiency to using that, but it could leave more water on the surface, meaning you're gonna have probably a harder drying job. But your car's well protected, that water should run off quite easily either way. It also should be an indication of how much of your protection is still left on. If it's changing week to week, in particular, that's a time to check your washing processes if you're doing something that diminishes your surface protection at a rate which is not what you expect, right? We talked about a Carnauba wax customer of ours complaining about the durability of the wax. He was washing with Dawn dish soap and it was stripping the wax off very quickly. So he needed to change his soap as part of his washing process. So rinsing is your preference. Your protection will make it easier. And I think it's just a matter of what you've got on hand.
Yep. Ian Ramirez asked, is using ceramic wash and coat weekly enough to give my car UV protection? Do I really need a coating on a newer car? If I need a coating, which one can I do once every 2 weeks or so? Looks like the question might have cut him off at 200 characters like our chat does. But using ceramic wash and coat weekly is going to give you protection, and any protection is going to provide some level of UV protection. So yes, to answer your question, do you really need a coating on a newer car? If you're referring to an actual high solid ceramic coating, I would say no, that's not necessary. But if you're referring to having some sort of protection, I would say yes, absolutely. Most cars fresh off the lot, and you know this firsthand, don't contain protection and often are quite contaminated and scratched. So if you haven't seen our video already about accepting a new car, definitely check that out for our best recommendations. But I would definitely get protection on the vehicle as soon as possible, even if it is a new car, because there's typically either nothing on there or nothing substantial.
Yeah, and again, if you're washing your car every week, ceramic wash and coat is a perfectly acceptable way to replenish any protection that may have diminished since the last time you washed it. But we do kind of split the difference in that if your car is extremely soiled, ceramic wash and coat isn't as lubricant rich as a brilliantly finished car wash or a standard pH neutral soap. It contains that ceramic element in it, and that is going to diminish the lubrication and suds that wash creates. I would also say, so you can definitely use it every time if your car is pretty consistent level of soil and you had a great time the last time. But it is more expensive, again, than one of our standard pH neutral car wash soap. And I think you'll be surprised at how durable the protection ceramic wash and coat provides, so that you might apply ceramic wash and coat once and still see its protection a month later and have washed 3 times with a pH neutral soap. What have you done? Well, one, you still have protection, which is great, but 2, you've lowered your cost per wash by using a less expensive soap every time, which is just preference, right? But we do sell car wash, so but we're trying to be at least objective about how you can mix those things together. And then of course there's always the aspect of, if you think your car is protected, you choose to wash with a pH neutral soap, you rinse and don't see the level of protection you're expecting. If your car's still wet, you can do things like use our ceramic speed shine as a drying aid, which also creates lubrication for your drying process, or spray ceramic 3-in-1 wax and then rinse it off after about 10 seconds and use it as a rinse aid. And both those steps will bolster protection on your paint surface, contribute to that ceramic base layer and UV protection that you're seeking, and just be alternative methods to prolong your protection. But you won't be able to see the full picture of how well your protection is holding up until your car is clean and wet and you're looking at water behavior. So you definitely don't want to make a judgment call spraying on a dirty car. You want to make that judgment call after you've cleaned all the above surface contaminants that could be masking some of the protection that still remains. on your car.
100%. Jay Maynard asked, how often should I wash my mitts in the washing machine? I would say after every wash. And then JD Marbin asked, do you use that APC before every contact wash? I would say only as necessary. It's not necessary before every wash, but if you have contamination that you're wanting to remove with that product, absolutely it's safe to use before every wash.
Yeah, and just remember what we did say on Wednesday about any of those pre-treatments that are alkaline, such as that APC, foaming surface prep 10-to-1 or bug and smudge remover. They most likely, if they're going on paint, will compromise protection. However, sacrifice the protection to get rid of the nasty stuff like bugs and tar. I'm not going to change my perspective on that. I'd much rather re-wax the car than not treat the bugs correctly and come back a month later and find scarring from the bug guts because I was trying to protect my wax versus my actual paint system.
Yeah.
We also had a question about wheel well cleaning that we didn't mention APC at that time. All-purpose cleaner at 10-to-1 or 4-to-1 would be a great option for wheel well cleaning, as well as engine cleaner. I had a lot of success with that. If you still have plastic lined wheel wells, both those products will be great to attack the oil and stuff that comes up off the road as part of your cleaning process. Mm-hmm. I've got another one, Stevie, because I keep knocking onto your questions, and this is how it always goes. So we feed off each other, and we can fill in the gaps for one another as well. But we had two people ask a very specific product question. Gordon Chan and Samuel Donko say, we need gallon sizes of the wheel, tire, and mat cleaner. We spoke to this a little while ago. We had kind of a regulatory snafu with the gallons that we have since remedied. So we actually are reissuing our SDS, or our safety data sheet, which will take us out of what was a shipping classification that prevented us from shipping those gallons. So that will be back on the market very shortly. If you don't sign up for our emails, you won't know as soon as possible, but I guarantee you, as soon as we're able to ship gallons again, we are going to make an announcement on all of our social channels, on our main website, and to our email list, and that will be very, very shortly. We have resolved that issue entirely. It was simply a misclassification of that product that was saying it was something it very much is not. And that sometimes happens with overzealous regulators, but we also want to be safe, and so we were a little confused. We took it off the market to protect everybody and our business, and now it's coming back online.
Yeah, it has been really great to see all the love for that product and how much you guys have wanted the gallons, so we are very happy to be able to offer that for you guys again.
Yeah, if we bring them back, it just means you guys got to buy them now. So.
Yeah, don't disappoint us.
I got some handwritten notes about it, so I'm sending those guys gallons because they took the time to write me a note. So they're going to get a very nice surprise.
You're going to get a lot of letters after this.
Yeah, I already do. It's a standard that my dad set. Hey, if you're unhappy with something or you have a suggestion for us, you write us a note. I'll return in kind with a phone call, a note of my own, an email, whatever information you give me to get back to you, and however I can make you happy, that's what we're going to do here at Griot's Garage.
Joe R. Finance asked, do you use a foaming cannon for every wash or simply only when you're going to do a deep clean? I think this is a perfect time to touch on that foaming is perfect as a routine wash, and it's going to be the safest option. So if you have the ability to do a foaming wash every single time, absolutely do that. Foaming has the highest chance, especially depending on the soap that you're using, you have the highest chance of achieving a safe touch-free wash, especially if you're maintaining your vehicle regularly. So ideally that would be the case. However, it's not necessary every time. It is going to be the best case scenario.
Yeah, we kind of spoke to it. If you don't have the equipment, you're probably not doing a foaming wash, which means you can look for other methods that are still safe. I think foaming's the most fun too.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, washing here where we've got a wall-mounted pressure washer with a retractable hose versus doing it at my house, I've got to curl the hose back out, take the pressure washer out. It adds some time, But to your point, I'm confident it's the safest way to wash, and we've said that for a very long time. So yeah, it's, you know, once you have a good setup, there's no time added to it, but it varies based upon where you're doing it and what kit you have.
And even so, kind of weighing the consequence of, yes, it's going to take more time to do this and get the pressure washer out and put everything away after, but you're also going to increase the safety, you know, reduce the chance as much as possible of adding swirl marks during your wash, and therefore prolonging the amazing appearance that you work so hard and spend so much money to maintain.
Yeah. John Lawrence asks, often when I wash the car, I have water spots show up. What causes this and how do I eliminate it? Well, we've talked about this a lot. Water quality is definitely important when you're washing your car. Some folks in the Midwest have very hard water. If you're getting water spots from your hose water as you wash your car, you probably want to check if your water is hard or not. The way you do that, very inexpensive tool, a TDS meter. You know, anything below a 50 is going to be soft water, which is what we have from the tap here in Tacoma. When we go to Indianapolis to test in our facility there, the water comes out of that hose at 500 TDS. That water will definitely cause water spots. In particular, if you're washing on a day with direct sunlight, working your way around the car after you've cleaned it, some of that water is going to probably evaporate in that direct sunlight. That's going to cause a water spot. Thankfully, those type of water spots are going to be quite superficial and may be able to be wiped away with a quick detailer. However, if when you clean your car, you see water spots, it's most likely that they are embedded in the paint and have not been removed. So you definitely don't want to keep adding water spots every time if you have hard water, and probably invest in a deionization system. But if they're already on your paint, you're probably gonna have to polish to remove them, or use a product like our water spot remover, which ideally is the first step before you have to polish. We talked earlier about the finite nature of your paint system, so always do the least aggressive method first, which is check your water. If you've got the spots, use a water spot remover, or if that doesn't remove them because they're even deeper than that product can attack, you're gonna have to polish. And then after you polish and remove them all, again, I would hate for you to go back out, wash your car, and get them right again. That's no fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, Ken Watras asked, I have the Boss foaming cannon. Is that your best foam cannon? It is a little more expensive. We were talking about washing basics, so if you're looking to just kind of dip your toe into foam and you don't want to make that big of an investment, we do have the Brilliant Finish foam cannon, and that still provides excellent foam. Really, really amazing foam. The Boss foam cannon gives you a few added benefits in that you're able to use a metering tip, how we spoke to earlier. You can just thread it directly onto the bottle of the foaming surface wash, for example, and use that as opposed to having to pre-dilute it. So that's an added benefit. It also has a little better chemical resistance, and
due to its construction, stainless steel versus anodized aluminum, which both of those are superior to brass construction that, you know, can degrade quickly over time. But the pricing on our two different foam cannons is primarily related to construction quality, and you already hit all the other differences. So again, either way, you buy either of our foam cannons, you're definitely getting a high quality piece of equipment over, you know, standard $17 to $30 ones.
Yes. Mike Eon Faya. Mikey on Fire asked, are the rubberized nozzle tips out? They are not quite yet, but they are coming soon, so keep your eyes out, and again, subscribe for our emails.
Yeah, the tips and the stubby pressure washer gun that we showed at SEMA, both of those are coming at the same time. We're hoping for those, we can't promise a date, but we're looking at mid to late May is where we're thinking, so soon. And again, those are ones that you need to follow us in some way, shape, or form to be the first to find out. I'm very excited for those to come.
Mm-hmm. Likewise. Mikey on Fire also asked, I detailed 24 transportation class B fleets, and they must get washed every weekend. Is the Black Shine XL or ceramic tire dressing better for durability? About to make a purchase, please advise. Ceramic tire dressing is going to be a little more durable than the Black Shine XL, but depending on the size of the tires, Black Shine XL might be more efficient paint to apply. So you might end up finding that Black Shine XL is going to be a better option for you just based on the wider spray pattern for those larger tires and being able to coat Lord knows how many tires way faster than the ceramic tire dressing, which would be applied onto an applicator and wiped on.
Well, Class B, that's like dump trucks and school buses. So those are big, tall tires. The only good thing is they're probably not like knobby all-terrains like what are on this van again. So I think that's a great point, Stevie. I didn't even think about it when I read that question. Ceramic tire is undoubtedly more durable, but it might take you a lot more time. But that might also mean that you have to do it less.
Yeah.
Right? So you might invest a lot of time the first time you apply it and find that, oh man, I don't have to reapply it for 3-4 weeks. That's a great benefit of durability for sure. All right. What do we got?
Nathan Sheba asked, for unidentified sticky stuff that regular car wash won't remove, what product do I start with and how do I move up the aggressiveness ladder from cleaners to all-in-one, clay, etc.? Thank you. So for unidentified sticky stuff, I would start with, say, foaming surface prep as a wash or in the 10-to-1 spray dilution. Let that dwell and kind of soften that, rinse it off, do another wash if you need to where you agitate. And then if it's still lingering, my personal recommendation, not knowing what this is and just having unidentified sticky stuff, would be the 3-in-1 tar bug sap remover. Spray that on, allow that to dwell, and then come at it with a clean, like microfiber edgeless utility towel, for example, or even a wet ErgoWave foam scrubber, depending on the, I guess, stickiness of the residue still.
Yeah.
It will start to soften up and you may need multiple applications.
Yeah, it feels like you kind of have to understand what it could be from, right? If it's, sometimes we get like this fine sap spray, and in that case, you nailed it right on there. But we also get these like, they look kind of like bug poop. They're like a hard, it just looks like a little dot. I wouldn't necessarily call those sticky, but you could also try claying as well. And claying, if it, the one benefit of that is that if it is something really sticky and nasty, like a bubble of tar, and you try and remove it with a tar remover, well, you might actually smear that and push something that's sharp into the paint, creating a scratch. So I think if your car is generally clean or has been cleaned recently or is protected and you're just kind of looking at mist and sticky stuff, totally. If it looks like it's black or it's been there for a while, I'd probably clay around it because you're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive in how you attack it.
Yes.
All right, Tim Callahan asks, do we have any intentions of entering the acid-based wheel cleaner area? I think that acid wheel cleaners are generally used by professionals, and I have used some myself. Super effective. If you ever see products that are kind of spray on your wheels and tires and rinse off, most likely an acid base. Now there's some nastiness to acid, in particular if you're not doing a really good job or you haven't done it a lot, you could easily damage your wheel system or clear coat with those. And then just the human health element, I would suggest that I want to stay away from that. I'd rather spend the time agitating and cleaning my wheels, knowing that my kid could come out and help me with that, or the amount of wheels and tires I've cleaned over my lifetime, that's going to catch up with me at some point with a really aggressive chemical. So, we generally try and listen to our customers and their asks. We also have to validate whether there's a market for it. I'm certain that a lot of professional users would be safe or would be comfortable with acid-based wheel cleaners. I don't know. I have to dig into it a little bit from our end consumer, but I think we've got some pretty darn good options to choose from. So I'm going to say probably not anytime soon, Tim.
Samuel Donko asked, are wash pods safe on matte paint and wraps? Yes, they are 100% safe.
On top of pretty much any other pH neutral wash product. So the wash pods are pH neutral. I had vinyl wrap car. Actually, before I painted my E30, it was vinyl wrapped. And we pretty much, I got more time out of that than I thought I would. And so at the end of its life, we were just testing everything on it. Generally, the thing to stay away from with vinyl products is anything that contains an abrasive or like a Carnauba product that might change its appearance. So pH neutral protection-free washes, I can safely say, are going to be great on vinyl wraps.
Yes. Sound and Gloss mentioned that they couldn't watch live, but they were asking about storing chemicals in a hot car in California. They were asking about spray-on car wash and ceramic speed shine. I would say that ideally it would be best not to, but I definitely have some in my trunk that I've had for probably like 5 years that are still holding on well. It's not that it's not safe. Depending on how hot the temperature gets, your bottle could potentially break down over time. But then also products like ceramic speed shine or rinseless wash and wax, or products that have a wax additive, tend to separate out with more heat cycling and cool cycling, depending on what area of the country you're in. I know you're in California, but someone who is in an area that gets really cold might have the alternate end of the spectrum. I would say ideally products that have any sort of protection I wouldn't store in your trunk, but products like spray-on car wash are totally fine. Just check on them periodically, make sure that you're not melting the bottle.
I'd also make sure to just turn your sprayer to off or stop, because part of that liquid expansion with heat is that you might get some weeping out of the sprayer that would, continue create a nice little puddle on your trunk carpet, which you wouldn't be happy with. You can also keep them in like a bag of sorts, or a plastic tote. But yeah, I mean, you want that stuff for quick jobs. Bird hits your hood, it's there, you can grab it and wipe it down. But it's not the ideal storage space for sure.
And make sure you're not storing aerosols. I know that's common sense, but I just want to make sure we call that out.
We had a couple jokes. We're getting to the end of this too, because we definitely motored through a lot pretty quickly. But Extreme Details, who always participates and is at all of our lives. We asked for some dad jokes, as we always do, but this one spoke to my heart. So he wrote, 2 windmills were sitting on a hill. One asked the other, "Do you have a favorite song?" The other replies, "Well, all my life I've been a heavy metal fan."
That's pretty good.
And then Tim Callahan says his toddler keeps trying to foam around and find out when he's when he's helping his dad. Has anyone ever tried the Baby Don't Cry kids bubble bath in the foam cannon? I have not, but I have a couple toddlers that I might give you some feedback on that. Granted, they were here yesterday helping me foam a car. They like it now, so they're picking up what I'm putting down, and they're contributing.
Yeah, we have the door open from this area to like the R&D and then our office, and I heard your son ask, "Dad, can I help?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, please let him help."
Dream come true. So yeah, he does the low stuff now, but speaks to our stuff being safe. And yeah, I probably don't want him doing it on the black Porsche that I washed yesterday morning, but my old Land Cruiser, sure, you can help out with that.
Let's see.
We're talking toddlers too, not like 10-year-olds that could probably be trusted. With some coaching, of course. I got one from Tim Callahan again. Is using the ceramic 3-in-1 spray after ceramic wash and coat considered too much or unnecessary? I would say yes, probably too much. I think the amount of protection that ceramic wash and coat provides as part of a routine washing process is going to surprise you. But kind of refer back to what we talked about earlier, like you can judge with your eyes and water behavior how much protection is on your paint. So I would suggest using one or the other if you wanted to boost or top your base coat after you've washed the car. So really the risk at some point is that one, you're just using product you don't need, and two, if you continue to layer and layer and layer, you may start to develop a film. It's not harmful, but it does give you kind of a pushing look or a streaking look that eventually kind of evaporates away. But I can tell you, if you see that happen, you'll freak out and probably call me. So I would think just pick one or the other, and then judge whether or not you need to boost your car after it's clean and rinsed, and you watch what the water's doing on the surface.
Yep. Tim Callahan also asked if we noticed we missed a spot, so wheels in his case is what he's asking about. After everything is said and done, what's the best way to get those spots in touch-up? He said he's been using window cleaner. Would speed shine be better? I would definitely recommend something with lubrication of some sort. With wheels, typically these are a little dirtier, so I would recommend something like spray on car wash or something with a little more lubrication to it. I wouldn't recommend using window cleaner, and then also I would recommend using a towel or tool that has some sort of nap to it, and then designate that only for wheels and dirty jobs as opposed to then using that on the paint later on.
Yeah, and that's why having kind of good wash discipline, I mean, granted, a vehicle of this size, if you can wash it first time without missing a single spot, you're being very thorough and disciplined. However, I have a squirrel brain, so sometimes I will, wash out of order, still following the basic rules that have been beaten into my head since I was very little. But a touch up, a little streak here, to your point, depending on how dirty the car was before you started, spray on car wash might be the right choice. But if you're washing your car every couple weeks or every week and you see a spot that you missed and it's visible, I'd say that's probably light enough for speed shine. But yes, segregate your towels between your wheel drying and touch-up towel and stuff that you put on your paint system. You don't want to bring brake dust onto your paint by not having more towels than you need. That's just a quick way to a bad time.
Yeah, and I would say if you're never missing spots on your wheels, I'd like to meet you and figure out what you're doing, because wheels are a pain in my rear end. I hate them. That's the one part of car care that just drives me crazy. But we were talking in the live about kind of process and how Sam, we were asking what his process is, and Nick, you described yours of how you address the wheel and kind of working from the bottom clockwise or counterclockwise or whichever one Sam said. I tend to start in the middle, work my way up to the top, and then again, bottom middle, work my way up to the top. But what I recommend is after you rinse your wheels in particular, but also the vehicle, do a quick walk around, because typically by then some of the water has settled off of the surface and you're able to see spots that you've missed, and that way you still have the products and the tools out and you can just spray on and re-agitate right there. Yeah,
that's really good. Again, we kind of talked about our different methods, and each wheel set is going to be different, right? Like this is a really simple wheel set. It's just a standard German military wheel that we threw on this Westie. Some, like the R32 wheel or the BBS basket weave wheels, those will drive you nuts if you're just herky-jerky and going any which way you want. But something like a 5-spoke, yeah, it's not going to be that hard to remember where you started and where you're going to finish. But I like that tip the best, which is, move on to the next wheel. By the time you're finished with that one, just go take a look at the wheel you cleaned before while it's still kind of wet. And again, you've got the wheel cleaner in hand and the wash tool, and just hit it before you have to come back. Dedicate one of your towels, use some of your speed shine. Yeah. Whatever it may be. So
and
that's
depending
great.
on your wheels, mine aren't even that intricate, but they do have a lot of they have a main spoke and then little spokes that come off of it. And so it's really tricky because you can't really see the bottom of those spokes, and so you end up inadvertently missing one. So just taking your time and being methodical about making sure that you do thoroughly agitate each of the insides of whichever spokes or whatever area you're working on. Not trying to rush through it.
That's why wheels off detailing is so good. Because you roll the wheel around versus having to get in the car and move it 6 inches so the wheel spins, or putting it up on a jack stand so you can free spin the wheel. Yeah. Those are great. It's great to have a lift to do some of these things. But yeah, well, I think that's it, Stevie. We covered everything. That was thorough. It was fun. So our next live is going to be May 15th. And it's going to be all questions, and then we're going to be taking some photo submissions as well. That's a month from now, so you're probably going to forget we're probably going to forget until we're reminded of it a week before it happens. You can always sign up for our emails at griotsgarage.com or follow us on Facebook, Instagram to see the fun stuff that we do and learn about sales, new product launches, and remind you when the next live is going to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys have been giving us some slack about not getting to pre-sub questions as much in the live events. So this is the perfect opportunity for you guys to send your pre-sub questions, and we have no choice but to answer them.
Yeah. Yeah, we heard you. We're going to do better next time.
Send us some hard questions.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Have fun in your garage.
Have fun in your garage.